What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Geek Culture Explained. And the more I thought about the Loki series, the more I started thinking about more characters who either need TV shows or need to appear in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I've put together a list of 5 people that I want to see in the MCU, TV shows, movies, or otherwise. So coming in at number 5, I'd love to see it in Loki. I doubt we will. The Living Tribunal. Mostly because of the fact that I feel like the Living Tribunal would be just this hugely imposing figure, right? The Living Tribunal, for those of you guys who don't know, is an answer to the question, what if the multiverse could just get up and walk around? Technically, Eternity is too, but he's more of a recent creation in Marvel Comics as far as the multiversal Eternity, as opposed to just the universal Eternity. But the Living Tribunal is incredibly powerful, and whenever you see him, he's enormous. He's absolutely huge, although sometimes he has appeared really small. The first time that he appeared in the Doctor Strange comics back in Strange Tales, he was a little bit taller than Stephen Strange, maybe twice as tall as Stephen Strange, but he wasn't like bigger than a planet, right? I mean, when it comes to characters of that magnitude of power, they can make themselves any size they want to be, and usually appearing as huge beings is designed to kind of demonstrate the amount of power that they have. But nonetheless, the Living Tribunal would be an awesome character to see, if for no other reason than the fact that it would give us a little more clarity in terms of how the multiverse functions, what form it plays, whether or not there's actually anybody out there keeping it organized outside of the TVA, because as much as I do love the TVA, they're only one facet, right? You've got Alteza, the custodian of the multiverse, you've got the Omniversal Development Court, you have all kinds of stuff like that. And that leads us into number 4. The Omniversal Development Court. This whole thing is led by Saturnine, right? The Omniversal Magistrates. And the only reason why I want to see the Omniversal Development Court is because it would give more credence to Brian Braddock, to Captain Britain. See, as a comic book fan, I love multiversal stuff. I love things that deal with all these crazy, huge, complex situations. And when you look at something like the Omniversal Development Court, it'd be really cool to see how they play with regards to other universes that exist out there. So for those of you guys who don't know what this is, the Omniversal Development Court exists to make sure that universes evolve the way they're supposed to. So if we go by the old school Marvel UK Captain Britain stories by Alan Davis and Alan Moore, then basically all this told us is that the Omniversal Development Court ensures that like mutants exist on Earth, on alternate realities, and that the Avengers come along somewhere along the line in these alternate realities. One of the things we've talked about before, in one of the moments when everything with the Omniversal Development Court went awry, was when they initiated something called the Push. If the Omniversal Development Court goes to an alternate reality and they realize that there is nobody there who has mutant powers, or there are no Avengers, or there's no superpowered beings whatsoever, they'll initiate the Push to kind of begin the process of getting those genes going, getting those powers manifesting, and then just kind of call it a day. And the idea behind this was that the Omniversal Development Court and Saturnine came to the realization that in the universe, which was numbered Earth 238, that there was nobody that had powers there, and that was due to a guy named Mad Jim Jaspers. Jim Jaspers was basically a guy who could alter reality, and what he did is he created a being called the Fury that essentially had the power to adapt to any powers anywhere, and then figure out anybody's weaknesses and use those to their advantage. This led to the Fury literally going across the world and killing every single superhero it came across, and Jim Jaspers was the only person with any powers left. He did this because, by his own admission, he didn't want any competition. Ultimately, Captain Britain Brian Braddock ends up in that universe, and the Omniversal Development Court initiates the Push. Jim Jaspers gets pissed and he initiates the Jaspers Warp, which literally starts twisting and skewing that whole universe to the point when they actually had to destroy that universe in order to keep it from infecting the multiverse. But that's the role the Omniversal Development Court plays, making sure that universes evolve the way they're supposed to. And wouldn't it be cool if the Marvel Cinematic Universe becomes a multiverse, and then we in turn find out that in other universes, there are mutants who are there, but they haven't popped up for whatever reason in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the main universe, so the Omniversal Development Court helps to usher them in. I don't really know if that's exactly what would happen, but it would be cool to kind of see them referenced. So following that lengthy number 4, we're into number 3. We are never gonna see this guy in the MCU, but I would love it if we did. The Molecule Man Owen Reese. I love the Molecule Man. So the Molecule Man originally had this amazing origin story, and then it was made better by Jonathan Hickman during his Avengers and New Avengers run. But the Molecule Man Owen Reese was basically the result of what happens when a person absorbs the power of a cosmic cube. Here's a funny thing about this. If you're only familiar with the movies, the cosmic cube is the Tesseract, which is secretly housing an Infinity Stone. In Marvel Comics, it's not that way. A cosmic cube is actually what happens when you absorb energy from a realm called the Beyondverse, which is home to the Beyonders, and then you put it inside a containment unit or a stasis unit, which usually comes in the form of a cube. Not always. In the original Infinity War storyline, we actually found out that cosmic cubes look different in other universes. Sometimes they're a diamond, sometimes they're a circle, whatever the case happens to be. So when the Molecule Man originally got his powers, what he did was inadvertently create the process by which you create a cosmic cube. But because there was no stasis unit for that energy from the Beyonders to go into, instead, half of it went into him, and the other half went out into the universe and then eventually became the original Beyonder. Now fast forward to Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers. What you end up finding out is that the Molecule Man was actually created by design, that the Beyonders were these beings who existed beyond the multiverse in what's quite literally called the Beyondverse, and the idea is that the Beyonders would detonate all the Molecule Men at the same time, because with that much power, when he died, his universe would go with it. This guy can do anything, and because he can do anything, you're never gonna see him in the MCU. Because he would turn into one of these characters where you would find yourself asking the question, if such and such rises to power, or like Dormammu shows up, or some enemy appears, why doesn't the Molecule Man just fix it? He's got the power to do everything, right? So you're not gonna see him in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So coming in at number 2, and I don't know if we're ever gonna see this guy, World Breaker Hulk. Here's the thing. I remember I was sitting in the Discord server, and if you guys didn't know, I have a Discord. Make sure you guys check the link down in the description and it will send you there. But we had this discussion in the Discord server about potential scenarios in the events of Infinity War and Avengers Endgame and how it might have turned out differently. And my thought was, I would love to have seen World Breaker Hulk, even if we only saw him for a moment. So imagine like during the events of Avengers Endgame, you have that great big huge fight towards the end, right? And like the Incredible Hulk has already snapped everybody back, but come to find out, Betty Ross had died, but she had not died during the snap. She died during the assault on New York by like the Ebony Maw or something like that. And the Incredible Hulk realizes he can't bring her back. It's kind of a complicated plot thread to throw in there, but it would still be cool. And so when the Incredible Hulk realizes there's no way to bring Betty back, maybe he hits up Iron Man or somebody like that and says, hey, see if you can scan for Betty Ross, make sure she's okay. And he's like, no man, she's still dead. There's no way to bring her back. The Incredible Hulk snaps. So you've got this great big huge fight happening on like the battlefield, right? You got like the Avengers and you have the full force of Thanos and all that kind of stuff. And then you just hear this sound deafening roar. Like everybody stops and it's like, what in the hell is that? And then like the ground just starts shaking, right? It's like an earthquake under their feet. And like the Incredible Hulk is just running towards Thanos full bore. And you're like, oh my God. And then like somebody makes an offhanded remark like, oh my God, like he's gonna break the world. And that's when it's like World Breaker Hulk. And like he just bam, tanks Thanos in one punch. Because I can promise you right now, World Breaker Hulk could do it, man. The biggest problem you have there is how do you fix that? How do you get the Incredible Hulk back down to his current form? Because I promise you, Black Widow running up on him like, hey big guy, the sun's getting real low. That's not gonna work. He's gonna be like, I don't care, you know, it's just, let it set, you know, it's set for me forever, you know, I don't know, but like that wouldn't work, right? So it would be cool to see like World Breaker Hulk in the MCU, but it's one of those things where they kind of have to build up to it. And at number 1 on our list, and anybody who watches Comics Explained knows this guy was coming, Adam Brashear, the Blue Marvel. I love this guy. Adam Brashear has one of the best comic book stories in the history of Marvel. So check this out. Adam Brashear is basically a superhero before pretty much all the other superheroes, right? So like he was saving the world before Peter Parker became Spider-Man, before the X-Men were formed, before the Fantastic Four went to space, got their powers, and became the Fantastic Four. He was the hero before all of them, even before Robert Reynolds took the modified version of the Super Soldier Serum that basically was 1,000 times more powerful than the one that gave Steve Rogers his powers, and then became more or less like a godlike character, even before him, right? Like it was Adam Brashear, but he was a superhero during the early 1960s. But he, alongside a friend of his named Connor Sims, were actually working on a way to essentially use antimatter energy, right? So energy from an alternate reality as an energy source on Earth. But ultimately the experiment goes awry. Adam Brashear gets blasted with all this energy, so he can effectively just channel antimatter energy for limitless possibilities, and he's considered a stable antimatter reactor. Connor Sims is not, right? He's crazy and he loses his mind. The power kind of screws him up. And then it's also his just extreme misanthropic view and cynical view of humanity. And so eventually the two of them get into a great big huge knockdown drag out fight, right? Now Adam Brashear's got his whole costume on, the mask, the cape, the outfit, the whole 9 yards, and he ultimately defeats Connor Sims while everybody's cheering him on. The problem is he comes out of the rubble, his mask is torn, and the country learns he's a black guy. Following that, the country freaks, right? The whole of Black America is like, you have to side with us in the civil rights movement. You're one of us, you have power that could help us. At the same time, the government and white people are terrified because what happens if he decides to topple the federal government? Nukes aren't gonna stop him. The guy saved the planet from a meteor the size of Arkansas, right? So that's obviously not gonna help. So eventually he's called into the office of President Kennedy, and Kennedy basically relays all the fears and stuff that I just told you guys. And Adam Brashear's response is, that's ridiculous, right? I'm not gonna side with Black America any more than I'm gonna side with white America. I'm a champion of the world. I protect the world from threats. It's not like when a meteor is coming to Earth, the meteor is like, okay, I'm gonna get into the atmosphere, I'm gonna split into a zillion pieces and only kill black or white people. It's like, if a meteor crashes into the world, it's going to evaporate all life on the planet. So, I saved the world. And then ultimately Kennedy's like, that may very well be true, but because of the political climate, we can't necessarily believe that. So he asked Blue Marvel to step down, and Blue Marvel does. And then he gives him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and then Blue Marvel gets pissed and throws it in the moon and almost cracks the moon in half. And that's issue number 1. The rest of the 4 issues are basically this hunt by Iron Man to try to find Adam Brashear. And you learn about all this stuff, Project Wide Awake, the whole 9 yards. But I would love to see him in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Dude, his movie would be amazing. I would prefer a TV show. And honestly, I would choose John David Washington as the guy to play him. A lot of people are saying like, you should, Denzel Washington should be the one to play that guy. Here's the problem. It's much easier to make John David Washington look older and have him play the character for the next 15 years than to try to make Denzel Washington look younger and be limited to the next 5 years on how long he can play that character. I feel like people don't think about that. They just think about the idea that they love Denzel Washington and he should play the role, which admittedly is kind of cool, but his son's a much better pick. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. I'd love to hear your all's top 5 list, and I will catch you all later. Peace.